Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz, and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
Hello.
Hi! I took a big sip of tea then. I couldn't say hi.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome.
It's the start of September,
Hope you enjoyed your summer.
start of a new season. I love this time of year.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I am one of those annoying people that loves every season. Like almost every season, I'm like, oh, we're going to love it. I'm not going to lie. February, March, April can be a bit draining when it doesn't stop raining. And I do love the signs of spring, summer, you know, the lighter days, the occasional warm day. But I'm a winter baby.
Ah, makes sense.
And Christmas obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people. Trees up 1st of December.
1st of December.
Yeah. If I could do it before then, I would. Don't hate me.
You're a Christmas tree retailer's dream.
I am. But we digress.
Mm-hmm.
So back to September, back to the new season, back to our topic today. What are we going to talk about, Linz?
We are going to talk about the fact that all roads lead to a buyer.
That's true. We've mentioned it before, haven't we? But we think it's a really good time to start to really bring in our friends from all the other departments. So we're going to talk today about the relationships we have as buyers with the rest of the business.
Mm-hmm.
We will try and do it justice.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do these roles ourselves.
No.
These are all from our opinion.
And
But this is almost like, this is a biased perspective of other people's roles.
Oh, this could get quite brutal.
It could. Should we start with merchandising? Because they are our partners in crime.
They really are.
But let's go light touch because we are hopefully going to be joined by our favourite merchandiser next week.
Mm-hmm. We've both had the privilege of working with her at some point in our careers.
Exactly. She's fabulous. So let's hope she joins us. So we've mentioned a few times in our previous episodes the close relationship that you have, or at least we think that you need to have to work well in kind of that sort of buying merchandising structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're often like the yin to your yang.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like they hold the purse strings, they have the responsibility of building the budget.
Your aunt to your deck.
Your
Sorry,
aunt to your
I was trying
deck.
to think of some more.
You see, they're racking your brains like, ooh, who else? Your Ashley to your Mary Kate,
Yeah.
to go old school.
Mm-hmm.
Your Tia to your Tamara. Sister, sister, never knew how much I missed you. Anyway, we get the point,
Yeah,
right?
mhm.
Yeah.
Got really showing our age.
But they have the responsibility for like building the budget. I mean, as a buyer, you need to be involved in it. Like you're signing up to it once it's set, and then ultimately you are, even though you haven't built it, you are responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to know what it is, don't you? Like as we've said before, like it's super important for a buyer to have like an awareness of numbers,
Yeah.
and like the more involved you are, like the more you'll understand, and the more
You just start
comfortable
thinking.
you'll feel in your department.
Yeah, you just start thinking in a different way as well when you're building your range.
Exactly. And if you were to ever move companies where they don't have merchandisers, then you
Yeah.
could be safe in the knowledge that like you know the basics. But I guess, how would you summarise it? Like their focus is generally more on stock?
Yeah, I think stock, and when it comes to building the strategy, it's like you're giving the ideas and then they're providing like the analytical data and ways of like researching if that's like, you know, a good idea, a good growth point.
They're kind of like
They back you up.
with the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also they stop you from going off on a wild goose chase.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if that's the right term, but they're like your moral compass.
Yeah.
Not that it's morals, but you know what I mean? They'll like bring you right back down to earth.
They're your earth compass?
Something like
Something
that.
like that.
I remember being like brainstorming and like, I'm no designer, but we were trying to come up with some new ideas because there were a couple of design options that we weren't that keen on. So I was trying to come up with some new ideas based on some of the trends I'd seen, and I was using my merchandiser as a sounding ground. Sounding ground?
Sounding post.
Sounding post. I was going to say sounding pole. It's a sounding board. But I was trying them out because I was like, ultimately, often merchandisers can be quite commercial.
Yeah.
Because they're that little bit risk averse. And so
they're like accountants in some ways, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
They have like that financial brain. So I remember trying them out, and I remember I was like, so I'm thinking pandas. So this was off the back of like the unicorn trend, the narwhals, etc., etc. Trying to think of like what's the new unicorn. I mean, let's face it, I don't think anyone has found the new unicorn.
There was llamas, wasn't there?
Yeah, but they were never quite the new unicorn.
No. And then it was mushrooms. But then was that, and
the
then that's
narwhal.
not an animal, was it?
And none of them did quite the same thing.
Yeah.
I think the question's still out there. What's the new unicorn? But at this point, I'd seen a lot of pandas on places, so there was quite a lot of Korean beauty coming through, and pandas were being used a lot. And I remember being like, pandas in space.
Pandas in space?
Yeah, which I thought was fantastic.
What did you have for lunch?
How fun! Pandas in little like rockets, or like dressed up as little astronauts.
A bit like John Lewis did a whole space Christmas thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So soon afterwards, all came out, she looked at me like I was absolutely gone nuts. Pandas in space. She brought me right back down to earth. A couple of years later, though, I was seeing pandas in space and animals in space all over the place. I was like, missed a trick.
It's because your Instagram been listening to you since you were
trick.
Yeah, so basically they provide the analytical side to your strategy. But you do work, I say your strategy, you do work on it together though. I mean, it might, from a product concept point of view, yeah, you're driving that. But from a like execution, looking at store grading, looking at like whether, the margin capabilities are setting you margin parameters around certain subcategories and all that kind of stuff. They are driving a lot of that, which you wouldn't be able to do your strategy without.
Absolutely not. And as we as the pandas in space show, they're a lot more like pragmatic and practical. How's a panda actually going to get into space?
That's great.
But they're less emotive, aren't they? Yeah. I think we mentioned they are generally seen as being a bit more risk averse. I think we've mentioned in previous episodes colours that they dislike.
Yes.
Colours that they like. And I think just generally they're great to build an assortment with because they'll give you the real groundings. And there can be different levels of sort of building assortment to very risk averse. Well, actually, no, very risk averse. I'd probably say 90% of it is like your core blacks and whatever, and then they'll be like, okay, so you've got 10% of your options that you can play about with. And we're like, I've got so many great ideas. How do I fit them all in? I
remember getting into me and one of my merchandisers. We were known for having not heated rows, but being quite bolshy with each other. When I would sit round by his desk and we'd do the numbers, and then people that sat behind us that might not know us would be shocked at the things we say to each other. Saying, "That is so stupid. Why have you put that in there?" And I'm like, come on, if I can have that, can I have this?
Oh, there's so much negotiation that comes into it, isn't there? Yeah. Negotiation's essential. Yeah. But I think, and challenging each other is essential because you're both there for a reason.
Yeah, and it's why are you only buying 5,000 cushions? Come on, that means it's 2 per store. What are they going to do with 2 per store?
Yeah. Pushing up your minimums.
Need at least 100.
Yeah. They were always the good merchandisers. I liked the ones that would always be you need more.
Yeah.
why are you only doing that? I was like, well, I went conservative on that one because I know I'd gone quite big over here. And
I know,
they'd be
it's
like,
never right. You're never right.
yeah,
You're never right.
always playing devil's advocate. But what if?
Oh yeah, and if something sells, it's their success. But if something doesn't sell, it's your failure.
In their heads.
In their heads.
I'd agree. And then
Generalizing.
And then on the other side, you've got the design team.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you're an own brand business, like you'll likely have like an in-house design team of often incredibly talented creatives and often like artists.
Yeah.
They're very passionate, or at least a lot of the designers I've worked with are very passionate. But I think you'd expect that with a creative.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have their own section in the office, don't they, where it's like the messiest section, but they need that outlet. They need that, like, samples everywhere, tears on the wall.
Yeah,
like,
to feel inspired.
Yeah.
I always found that you had to handle feedback to them very carefully.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to be quite sensitive. Like, they can be quite attached to the work, whereas you can be quite challenging with merchandisers, I think, because numbers are black and white.
Yeah.
And, it's right or it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with stock and quantities and predicting sales, it's not necessarily as black and white as that. But there is ultimately a more of a kind of less emotive sort of feelings towards them, whereas designers can get very attached to something that they have thought up and spent ages painting or creating. And that I've found sometimes as a creative buyer, you can then clash. You're working with someone else to try and create your vision.
Yeah.
But as a creative, they have their own vision.
Yeah, and yours tends to be a little bit more commercial. And
all based on data sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's an element of gut, but whereas a designer will often be, yes, creative, or what should I say? Almost like content data, if you know what I mean, like things that they've gone out and seen through like comp shops or exhibitions, or there's that element. Whereas a buyer will be combining the numbers from the merchandiser plus the content from the designers and coming up with a concept
and what the customer, bring it all back to what the customer needs. They're also producing quite a lot of sample designs that sometimes don't always make the range, and you're the one that makes the call. The buyer is the one that makes the call on what makes the range quite often.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit fiery with designers.
Sometimes I'd say, I would love to put it in, but the merchandiser said that I can only have 4 options.
The merchandiser.
I can only have 4 options, and so I'm so sorry. I love that design, but I just can't fit it in this season. I know it'd be hard. It would be hard. And I think sometimes because it is such a sensitive subject, and it's also quite a subjective subject as well, like actually, do I like it or not like it, can sometimes be the considerations. Sometimes when explaining your reasons, it's quite good to sort of like give those commercial facts and figures to back up the reasoning behind it.
But then also then it gives it a bit of background and essence for the sign off, doesn't it?
A bit more context, yeah. So those are our designers. Tech team.
Oh, tech. I love the tech team. They're always every technologist that I've worked with in all of the businesses that I've worked for, they've all got a similar trait. And I can't put my finger on it, but they're just a bit like scatty.
Oh,
a bit
really?
like not massively organised. Like they need you to organise them. But they're brilliant, obviously, at what they do with, providing safe and legal information and like being there and doing that. But
that's funny. I have experienced that more with clothing technologists that I've had. that are really good at doing the measuring and the scaling up and stuff like that, but whether or not they've seen that one before, or have we already done it, or did we do it last week, or should we do it next week, or where's the paperwork that goes with it? Where's the spec sheet, and is it there in the pile or is it over there? But when I've worked with technologists that are more accessories or craft, they've been so hot on it.
Oh, really?
I don't know if maybe because there are more health and safety and they're more about safeguarding the product.
Yeah, like the regulations for the UK and all that kind of stuff.
They have to be really, really hot on making sure that you're covered from that sort of like legal point of view, and like they might restrict things that you want to do. Like they want to make the product the best they can for, so that it sells, so for the customer, but also to protect the brand.
Yeah.
So I've found those technologists quite a bit more sort of like to the point and quite organised and
have their ducks in a row.
Very black and white. And also similarly risk averse to merchandisers.
Yes.
But like in both cases, you do need them to be.
Yeah.
And they are experts in their field, aren't they?
Yeah, that's why they're there.
And they're essential.
Yeah, they
aren't
are.
They really?
And you do form like such a strong relationship with them. They come on the trips. You want you need their approval.
Yes.
But you also, as more time you spend with them, you start to not put product in front of them that is going to be a bit of a contentious issue.
Isn't going to work.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you talk about the triangle, the sort of like the buying, merchandising and design triangle that there is. And we don't really talk about the tech part of that. Yeah. But like they are essential to make sure that your product 100%. Makes it from like paper to production, from the strategy to the store successfully. Like they're needed. I mean, they can frustrate us at times, can't they?
And then they break some.
I was just going to say drop tests.
Well, they always do it the day before sign-off. And you're like, that was my only sample. And now I'm going to have to try and stick it back together.
Yeah. Yeah, broken the arm off something.
For God's sake.
Yeah, and you're trying to show the leadership team why it's such a good quality product from this new supplier I've sourced.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But if you really pull on it, it'll snap.
But we are working on this.
Should we move on to marketing?
Yes.
So this is out of our sort of like triangle/square of products.
Turning into square now.
I know.
As we add more people in.
Yeah. But I think it is. Into a circle. So then you've got marketing. They don't work directly with you day to day like you would with designers and merchandisers and tech, but they are essential to help you bring your vision to life.
Yeah. In businesses that don't have marketing involved, especially in the sign-off, you're just not joined up and it falls over as soon as it hits the store because there's nothing there to promote it on the same journey. Like, you can put in like, a box ticking marketing that just applies to everything in the business, but unless you have the marketeers on the same journey as you, they're not going to know how to market it.
Yeah, to really enhance your product and to explain to the customer like how to use it, or like the best, or just to shout about it really.
Yeah,
like
there's so many different forms of marketing, isn't there?
Yeah,
digital marketing, then you've got packaging, branding,
point of sale.
Yeah, point of sale, actual campaigns, like making sure your product gets into their campaign is so important.
And also, like, how do they take, if they understand your product and what the benefits are, they'll know how to promote it. So say you've got a point of sale and your biggest thing about it is that it's got a particular USP, and it's priced at a general price that most of your products are.
Yeah.
But if you haven't explained that to them, they might just shout out the price. Well, what's the difference between that and the others if actually your price point all sit around the same sort of place?
Yeah.
You want them to call out the USP, but if you haven't had that relationship with them, then they're not going to do that.
They're not going to understand the concept.
But I think they're super creative, but in a much less emotive way than a designer.
Yeah, more pragmatic way.
Yeah, more structured sometimes because
more
it's
strategic.
Strategic, that's the word, yes. Yeah. But I have to say sometimes they can be a bit frustrating in terms of like, particularly press and social teams.
And deadlines.
Yes, because they
Everything's tomorrow.
work to such short lead times, particularly those kind of areas. And they've got less of an understanding really of our critical path, but partly because of just the turnaround time that they work to. But then they can be like, oh, I need X, Y, Z by like 5 p.m. Or not realising how few samples we get.
Yeah.
So they just think that you're like this
endless supply.
Yeah. And
I don't know where they think we're keeping them.
Sending them out and then they don't come back and you're like, I really needed that sample back.
Yeah.
Like,
what am I going to rack up for trade?
Yeah. I can't get any more in.
Yeah. I mean, this again, so integral, but they're probably like the next step away from. So you got your merchandiser, your technologist, and your designer who you work like day in day out with, and then they're almost like the next tier, aren't they? In terms of relationship.
Yeah. Along with probably. No, actually less. I think then the next level, to be fair, is probably VM. Because actually you don't need as many consistent conversations with VM. Because, yes, they still need to understand the vision and what products you want to pull out. And if your stores if you've got multiple stores and you have different gradings, they'll need to understand what they can put in the shop window, for example. That say all store, mid store, top store, or it could be that you're racking up a range and they need to understand the size of the product. So if they're doing more of a space management in terms of looking at shelf build, so size of the product or the price points, so that they can pull that together. There are some programs though that quite a few places use to, instead of doing it personally and standing there and putting all the products out, that they can just put it in and put certain like guidelines around and it will just fill the shelves for you.
Yeah, like iShop Shape.
Yeah.
Use that M&S.
I'm not as keen on those personally, but I think that's because I like to play around and place
I
product.
think it's because when we were quite junior, we worked in places where there was a mock shop and like an actual store layout where we would spend a lot of our time pulling out samples for them and them laying it all out.
Yeah, to be fair, in that scenario, I think we've annoyed VM in those department VMs a lot more than they've ever annoyed me over the years.
Yeah, because they can't lay out if they haven't got the physical sample. Or you'd mock one up. Like a CAD on front of a bag.
Or exactly as you said, because marketing have lost your only sample, you then need to borrow a sample for trade. So you pop over and grab one, but then you leave them with an empty space.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been.
Poor relation, aren't they?
Poor things. Sorry about that. But there are different types of sort of visual merchandising. And I think in some places they can get called merchandising when they are actually visual merchandising, but I guess maybe they're more space merchandising.
Yeah, space planning.
Space planning, and it's less about actually,
it looks like.
How it looks visually is still important.
Yeah.
But it's more about shopping habits and shelf fill and how many can you fit out, and therefore that impacts how many you need to order.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think maybe should we have some retail therapy?
Let's have some retail therapy.
Okay, let's go. Right. It was our summer campaign and we'd called in as many extra samples as possible. But all the favourite pieces were with one of our suppliers, so they didn't quite fulfil everything we needed in time. In fairness, it was a tight turnaround. It always is with these things, isn't it?
God, many a stressful carney.
So one of the main pieces, a beautiful caftan dress, hadn't arrived in time, so I had to give my only sample, i.e. the red seal sample.
Oh no, I hate that. And you're cutting the tag off and you're like, I don't want to let this go.
They put, it was a risk, but I was told I had to give it in by my buyer. But to make sure that I made a note on the carnet sheet that it was the only sample for production reference and needed to be returned exactly as it had been sent, in immaculate condition.
Oh no.
I even attached a note to the Red Seal label to cover myself, so they didn't cut the Red
they
Seal
didn't even
label
cut
off.
the tag off. You know they're going to cut it off.
As soon as the samples were returned from the shoot, I raced to reclaim the caftan, but I couldn't find it.
Oh no.
I searched and
Oh my
searched.
God, I remember doing stuff like that.
And then came across this slightly damp, covered in sand, crinkled version of the beautiful caftan I'd sent. Red Seal tag gone.
Oh no, I
You
called
said
it.
they cut
I
them
called it.
And then found the bottom edge missing. I was
Oh,
furious. But I tried to stay calm and just go and ask what happened, but I could feel the blood boiling inside me. Turns out, while on shoot, they had thought it would be great for the model to wade through the sea, being all urethral, and then lie on the sand in the damp caftan. And then another bright spark had the great idea to make a headscarf for another shoot out of the bottom edge of the caftan to link the shots creatively.
Oh, blimey.
I'm all for creativity, but my only sample was now ruined. Did no one read my labels?
It doesn't matter at that point, does it?
Oh God, I've been there. I feel your pain. I know what it's like.
And then that's often the sample that you're like, you have like a production sample come in and you desperately need to match it up with the Red
Like,
Seal.
it just doesn't look quite right.
I can't quite put my finger on it. What is different?
Yes, I just don't think this is what we agreed.
This is not right.
Holding
but I've got
up,
no
damp,
evidence.
crinkled, sand covered, slightly
on the VC.
missing.
It lit. Oh Lord.
God. Right, well, back to it. And then that leads us into retail. So the retail kind of operations teams, the teams that work with our colleagues on the ground, the ones that are closest to the customer.
Yeah, definitely. Regional managers.
And they are so important to get those sales through the till.
Yeah, and again, I think it's really important to strike up a good, strong relationship with your regional managers because they quite often, it's a good idea to have them on board with you because they can quite sometimes be quite, protective of the stores for reasons why things might not be selling. And then you do tend, like the buying merchandising teams then tend to get the blame. But if you're joined up together and you're all working collaboratively, then there's no need for blame. There's like, this has fallen over this because of X, Y, Z. Oh, sorry, let me help you out. Oh, can you make sure this store has put this stock out? Oh, yeah, let me help you out with that. Do you know what I mean? You need
sharing as much information as possible with them. And like you say, like if you've got a good relationship with somebody, if like on a Monday you're like, that is not selling. Why is that not selling? And you might have the merchandise being like, I told you that wouldn't sell. We should never have backed it. And you're like, no, it's a really good gut feeling. Like, there has to be a reason. And then you can call up and speak to a couple of stores and you find out that the delivery hasn't arrived or it only arrived that morning.
Part delivered.
Yeah, it's sat in the warehouse or they have had staff shortages. They've not been able to get the stock out. Or actually, they did put some out and they noticed a fault with it, it's not scanning properly through the till. Yeah. It's actually scanning through as a different product. So where you thought you had flying sales, turns out, and that information just hasn't quite filtered to you yet.
Or you haven't got your space on the mat yet because there's something else there that hasn't sold through. So your product's not even got to its position that it needs to be because the product before it's holding it up. Like there's so many things, isn't there?
And they're the ones that are customer facing. So if you want them to sell your product, then you need to empower them and share with them why that product should work rather than being like, I don't understand what it is either.
Yeah,
to the customer.
And I think it's so. I've seen so much benefit for really engaging them at the beginning. So after a sign off, I'll put some time in with them and I'll talk them through the range and I'll tell them exactly why I've bought it, the way I've bought it. So they're involved at the very beginning before it's even hit the shop floor. and they understand and they can communicate that to their teams.
Yeah.
We do lots of like model store days where everybody gets involved, training, all that kind of stuff. But that's your time then to build your relationships with them.
Yeah.
Face to face.
Yeah, and set it out from the beginning. Keep in touch with them throughout,
Mhm.
and at the end, get their feedback.
Yeah.
How do they think the season went? Like, what did they think sold well or didn't sell so well? And get it from lots of different regions as well, because you're going to have lots of different types of customers and lots of different demographics and lots of different geographical areas.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing about that I will say, it can be frustrating when the store feeds back on what you should have done when it's just an example of one customer in one store.
Yeah. I had
And
that a lot.
Especially when it goes against the numbers you're seeing.
Yeah.
So, for example, you could have something like really like a blanket statement like, blue and white bikinis aren't selling this year. And you're like...
But I'm like 30% up on the year.
And it was a big mistake to change from polka dot to stripes. When actually all the data you've got from the stores nationwide is like showing it's in your top 10 bestsellers and it's selling ahead of last year. And it's like, how do you manage that? Thank you for your feedback. However, and just like that, we're at the end of episode 1. Wow, that went quick.
You did.
And it just shows how central a buyer is to a company.
Mm-hmm.
All the relationships that you need to build for successful sales and how the customer is the centre of everything. It's everyone's responsibility in a company to focus on making it the best experience for a customer, and whether that be price, stock levels, design, quality, placement, POS, service, I could go on. But here are the 3 takeaways from today's episode.
So number 1, well, we have to start with all roads lead to a buyer. So it's important not to work in silo. You need the support of all the teams. Share your vision and aspiration. These are the people around you that bring your vision to life. Number 2, we're all working towards the same goal. Despite different skill sets, different focus, and different KPIs, the ultimate goal is still the same, to drive the company forwards. And number 3, customers are at the heart of the company. They have to be. If your customer isn't the reason that you do the work that you do as a retailer, then you're not heading in the right direction.
So next week, we're going to be joined by our partner in crime,
Yay.
our favourite merchandiser of all time, who will be able to give us a much better view of merchandising role that we have so far,
definitely.
I'm sure. And lots of juicy nuggets about retail too.
Amazing.
See you then.
See you later.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No,
Drama just makes things interesting.
that's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.